You twist your ankle on a curb, and before your brain finishes processing the pain, your hand is already locked around the arm of a stranger standing nearby. Not a friend, not family, someone you have never spoken to in your life. You did not choose them because you trust them. You chose them because they were close enough to reach and calm enough to hold you up. That decision took less than half a second. You have done this exact thing without ever once stopping to ask why a total stranger felt safer in that moment than being alone. In 2021, a wild bottlenose dolphin off the coast of Western Australia approached a group of snorkelers and pushed itself against one diver's leg until she noticed the fishing line wrapped around its fin. In 2018, a wild deer in rural Pennsylvania walked directly into a backyard, lay down at a homeowner's feet, and stayed still while she removed a plastic ring stuck around its neck. Footage like this gets tens of millions of views. The comment sections fill with the same word over and over: trust. People watch these clips and assume the animal recognized something good in the human. A kind face, a gentle presence, some shared spark of feeling that crossed the species line. That assumption feels warm, and it feels obvious, and it is almost completely wrong. In 2017, biologist Justine Smith, then at the University of California, Santa Cruz, ran a study with the Santa Cruz Puma Project. Her team placed speakers near mountain lion kill sites and played one of two sounds: a recording of a larger predator, or a recording of two humans having a casual conversation. The lions fled the human voices more than twice as often as they fled the other predator. These are animals capable of killing a full-grown deer in under 10 seconds. They heard two people talking about nothing in particular, and they left their meal on the ground. That is not the behavior of an animal that trusts humans. That is the behavior of an animal that has learned humans are the worst possible outcome on the entire food chain. So if every other predator in the system is terrified of you, what happens to the animal that isn't a predator? What happens to the elk, the deer, the dolphin, the prey? In 2007, ecologist Joel Berger, then at the University of Montana, studied elk behavior inside Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. He found that during seasons when grizzly bear activity increased, elk did not retreat further from people. They moved closer. They clustered nearer to roads, trailheads, and visitor centers, the exact places grizzlies avoided because humans were there. Berger called it the human shield effect. The elk were not bonding with tourists. They were using human fear as a weapon against something that wanted to kill them. This is the part nobody talks about when they share the dolphin video. The animal did not choose you because it liked you. It chose you because every other option had already failed, and you were the only remaining threat large enough to cancel out the threat it was already running from. That is the meaning shift, and it is worth sitting with for a second before moving forward, because it changes everything that follows. The animal did not see kindness. It calculated which danger was smaller. This calculation is not new. It is not even close to new. Roughly 40,000 years ago, in what is now Belgium and parts of Eastern Europe, wolves began appearing closer to human encampments than wild wolf behavior should have allowed. Researcher Mietje Germain-Prey at the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences examined a 700-year-old skull from Goyet Cave and identified skeletal features already diverging from wild wolves. A shorter snout, a wider braincase shape associated with reduced aggression. These were not friendly wolves. These were wolves that had run the same calculation the elk ran in Wyoming. Out there, in the dark, there were bigger predators. Near the fire, there were screaming, unpredictable, weapon-carrying primates who had somehow made every other apex predator afraid to come near. The wolves did not choose the safer option emotionally. They chose it statistically. Generation after generation, the wolves who tolerated proximity to that fire survived more often than the wolves who didn't, and natural selection did the rest without asking anyone's permission. You are the descendant of the species those wolves were running toward. Now here is the obvious objection, and it deserves a real answer instead of being brushed aside. If this is all just cold risk calculation, why does your dog actually seem to love you? Why does it wag its tail, lean into you? Watch your face for cues the way no purely rational survival strategy would require. Because somewhere between that wolf at Goyet Cave and the dog sleeping at the foot of your bed tonight, the calculation stopped being a calculation. In 2015, Miho Nagasawa at Azabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science showing that mutual eye contact between dogs and their owners triggers an oxytocin release in both species. Same hormonal loop that bonds human mothers to infants. Roughly 15,000 years of selective breeding rewired that ancient survival math directly into the nervous system. The dolphin pushing against the diver's leg and the dog leaning into your hand on the couch are not running the same program. One is improvising a real-time escape plan. The other has had that escape plan replaced generation by generation, with something closer to attachment. The wild animal asking a stranger for help has not had 15,000 years. It has one moment, one set of legs, one chance to read which nearby creature is least likely to finish the job a predator started. This is where the footage stops being heartwarming and starts being something closer to honest. In 2017, marine biologist Robert Pittman, working with NOAA, documented dozens of cases of humpback whales interfering when orcas attacked other marine animals, seals, sea lions, even unrelated species of whale. Pittman called it interspecies altruism, and the phrase spread fast because it sounded noble. But the underlying behavior is simpler and stranger than nobility. A creature in crisis will move toward whatever in its environment currently represents the most disruption to the thing trying to kill it. Sometimes that disruption is a humpback whale. Sometimes it is a campfire. Sometimes it is you standing in your backyard, holding a pair of scissors near a deer's neck. You were never selected for your gentleness. You were selected for your unpredictability. That is an uncomfortable thing to sit with because it strips the warmth out of the moment and replaces it with mechanics. But the mechanics do not erase what happens next. The deer still got free. The dolphin still got the line removed. Whatever the animal believed about you in that moment, you were still the one who showed up. Every viral clip of a wild animal walking toward a human gets framed the same way online, as proof that connection exists across every species, that kindness is recognized, that some universal language of trust links every living creature on Earth. That framing sells. It is also backwards. What actually happened is older and less comforting. 200,000 years ago, somewhere across the African savanna, a species without claws, without fangs, without speed, figured out how to control fire and move in coordinated groups loud enough to make lions retreat from kills they had already made. Every predator on that landscape adjusted. Every prey animal adjusted differently, and the pattern never left. It just moved indoors, into backyards, onto beaches, into the eyes of a deer standing still in a stranger's yard, hoping the loudest, strangest animal on the continent would once again be the safer bet. You still run a faint trace of this every time you reach for the calmest stranger in the room during an emergency, every time you trust a uniform before a face, every time something in you calculates safety before it calculates affection. That instinct was never replaced. It was only buried under language for it. Manners, trust, kindness. Words invented long after the calculation that came first. The deer did not know your name. The dolphin did not know your face. Neither one was asking you for love. You were never the predator they feared. You were the only danger big enough to make their danger leave.